Call to order meeting for February 4th, 2020 of the Port of Bellingham Board of Commissioners. I'll start with taking roll. Commissioner Bell?
Here.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Here.
And Commissioner Shepard is also here. All three commissioners are present. Take a moment to read some of our upcoming advisory meeting schedules. First, we have the Marina Advisory Committee, or the MAC, Tuesday, February 11th, 2020 at 6 p.m. in Commission Chambers, right here. The Technical Advisory Committee meeting, or the TAC, Thursday, March 12th, 2020, 9:30 a.m. in the ARF Conference Room at 200 West Bakerview Road at the Bellingham International Airport. And the Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee, or the BIAC, Thursday, February 13th, 2020 at 5 p.m. in the ARF Conference Room, 2005 West Bakerview Road, Bellingham International Airport. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
Elizabeth? No. Okay, no.
We have no one signed up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to come to the podium and speak? Seeing none. All right, we'll move on to our consent agenda.
A motion to approve consent agenda items A and B.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Commissioner Bell?
None.
Commissioner Briscoe?
None.
And I have none either, so go ahead and have
A motion to approve consent agenda items A and B.
Commissioner Bell?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
And Commissioner Shepard is also a yes, passes 3-0. That takes us to our first and only presentation today.
Okay, let's get us set up
You realize you have an hour.
here. I'll talk very slowly. How much do you want to talk about climate change?
Lots and lots.
You have an hour.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adrienne Hedgedis. I'm an environmental specialist here at the Port of Bellingham. I am giving a presentation today. As you mentioned, there's no action to be taken today, so it's just a presentation on our climate plan roadmap. Commissioner Briscoe, do you need me to identify which slides I'm speaking to as we go, or can you see?
No, I have the presentation in front of me.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So I'm going to start with a historical photo from upstairs. This is the Morrison Mill Company in 1921. And along the bottom of this photo is Roeder Avenue. If you were looking at a photo of this today, you'd see the granary building on the bottom right and our shipping terminal up in the center there. So the Morrison Mill Company was purchased by Puget Sound Pulp and Timber in the 1940s, and they were merged with Georgia Pacific in 1963. So it's really interesting looking at this photo, thinking about how much change has happened at this property, and never mind throughout the rest of the port in the last 100 years, and be at the point now where we're starting to think about the next 100 years. And part of that planning is going to be a climate plan with your direction. Speaking of which, about a year ago, we did receive direction from Commission to start to look at a climate plan and what that might look like for us. We do have a lot of efforts throughout the port to streamline things, improve efficiency, keep things running economically, and through all of those efforts, there is a benefit to our greenhouse gas footprint and reducing our sustainability impact. So we also have efforts underway where we're participating in the Cosmos sea level rise modeling, and that is through the USGS. We're partnering with the city on that. Kurt Baumgarten gave a presentation in the fall on that, which you can go back and look at in our records. We have other sustainability efforts, such as all of our energy efficiency work that's being done by our maintenance staff and our engineers, our ESCO contractors. We have a lot of waste reduction going on by staff throughout the port, and we also have our continued site cleanup. So we have a lot going on, but this plan is really that big umbrella tool that will support our port mission and our identity going forward, and kind of give us the red line to go through those processes. There's three types of climate plans as we move forward. There's the action-oriented type of plan, which is kind of those shorter-term manageable goals, aspirational plans, which are the big goals, and educational plans, which are informational for those readers who might need that. The climate plan is going to be guiding our decision making by providing clear direction and our vision moving forward. This will affect each division of the port, and so we really need to be careful at this point of having appropriate input and participation as we go forward. We will be looking at mitigation efforts. So mitigation is the reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions, and the benefits to doing that are reducing our greenhouse gases, but also positive recognition, early adoption, particularly among ports of our size. Our neighbors, like the City of Bellingham, Whatcom County, the Lummi, and Western Washington University are also taking action, so it kind of brings us to the table for those conversations. Adaptation, which is preparing for those changing conditions. Our geographic location makes it particularly important for us to think about resiliency for sea level rise and the impacts of more frequent and intense storms. This is a photo of Swanage Point Park. You can see the waves coming right up and over the breakwater and over into the park itself. It's a good illustration of those intense storms. So the climate plan will have a greenhouse gas inventory. So we'll be looking at through all the divisions of the port to figure out where we have greenhouse gas emissions. We'll be doing a vulnerability assessment, which is estimating the risks to port property and the impacts on our tenants and our community, and also taking a look at what we need to adapt to and what we need to prepare for moving forward. The intended outcomes of that climate plan are those goals, which are general statements on what should be accomplished. The strategies are how to achieve those goals, and measurable targets and benchmarks, which could be quantitative or qualitative. So the first step in developing a climate plan was putting together the roadmap, which you were sent, I believe, last week. And that roadmap was put together by a consultant called Eco Northwest from Seattle. The part of their process helped us identify the next steps for us, and really that first step is developing a vision. So that's looking at the concise definition of our ideal outcomes, and that's going to be conversational and hopefully involving all three of our commissioners, as well as senior staff and appropriate working groups. We'll be looking at our highest priorities for the Port of Bellingham as our values, and talking about our scoping, so which emissions would we be including and which would we be excluding from our climate plan. So the framework that was created through this roadmap gives us an opportunity to step back, figure out the next appropriate steps in developing the plan, and looking at that vision setting process and the goal setting process moving forward. So as part of this roadmap development, Eco Northwest sent out some initial questionnaires. Those were sent to a small group of key staff and Commissioner Shepherd as well. We asked for feedback regarding climate change related concerns, and the feedback that we got on that was that people are paying attention to storm intensity and flooding, emergency management, the damage to shoreline and infrastructure. And on sort of a longer term note, they're concerned about ocean acidification, the impact of that on salmon and other marine species, and the impacts on the fishing industry, agriculture, marine trades, and shipping, as well as other impacts to our communities. We asked for feedback on the existing resources and assets. And the feedback on the strengths that we got from these questionnaires were we've got good staff knowledge and experience, we've got open-minded leadership, good institutional flexibility, and now we have an opportunity for collaboration with other regional plans and government entities. I also put a picture of my favorite test taker and questionnaire filler there for you. As we asked for feedback on what stakeholder groups we have received feedback from, so the Whatcom Waterfront Coalition has expressed interest in being involved in something like this moving forward. So they were mentioned in that. And what types of communication we would like to have moving forward, whether or not people are interested in more of a presentation style or interactive work or focus groups. And of course, timely and appropriate updates to Commission, as well as opportunities for public feedback. The costs to consider that came out of those questionnaires included those costs to our tenants in the fishing industry. So if we have changes in fuel requirements, changes in fish stocks, how that might affect our tenants and our community, potential changes to the market value of our real estate portfolio, changes to other port infrastructure and land, and the cost of doing nothing. So if we don't do anything moving forward, what might that cost us in the long run? Part of the roadmap also determined a sample timeline moving forward, and I apologize, the font is tiny for those of you in the audience. But the time frame on this is from March 2020 to January 2021. And the groups involved in this are the working group, so the staff group, the port senior staff, commissioners, the external advisory groups, and the consultants as well. And then the tasks involved on this are the background analysis and the visioning process. Looking at data analysis, which is a greenhouse gas inventory, as well as a vulnerability assessment, goal development, strategy development, and then finalization of the document itself. So what we'd be looking at is this visioning process to start things off and providing some background to the folks involved in that and having maybe some short meetings or interviews leading up to a longer workshop, probably in late May or early June of 2020. So the outcome of this climate plan roadmap before you is that we have some direction in where we'd like to go. We know that this could be used as a driver for discussions on values, goals, and visions with those appropriate guidance, whether that's a facilitator or we have to look at the appropriate consultant on that. And then we have the framework now for developing a climate plan, and we have a sense of the time commitment for that. The next steps are that stakeholder-defined and influenced vision process. Then the inventory of greenhouse gases and other sustainability efforts. We do have plans to have an intern work with us on the greenhouse gas inventory, hopefully early this summer. And also setting up our goals and targets, likely for the next 5 years. So with that, if there's any questions or feedback, I'd love to talk about them.
Well, you certainly didn't make an hour for your presentation, so that means we're
Was-
going to pummel you with
Close, yeah.
questions, right? No. Questions. Commissioner Briscoe, do you have any questions?
Well, I only have one. When questionnaires are sent out, they shouldn't be sent to one commissioner. They should be sent to all three of us. We need to stay in the loop, and we can't stay in the loop if we're not sent the information. Don't know where that decision was made at, but I would like to see all three commissioners receive the same thing.
I hear you. Thank you.
Other than that, I have no questions. It looks like we've got a plan, and you explained it very well, Adrian. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Commissioner Dahl?
Sorry, if I may just, add to my response on that. Of course, moving forward, Commissioner Briscoe, we would like to involve all three of the commissioners as you would like to be involved and appropriately as well. So it's good to hear that from you, that you'd like to be more involved.
And I would like to see the questionnaire that was sent out to Commissioner.
Sure.
Shepherd,
Yeah.
please.
It is actually part of that roadmap that I believe Brian sent last week. You might have gotten that from Brian Gowan, but I'm happy to send that again to you as well.
Thank you.
So I echo that, and it falls into my third thing. Communications is important. And I'm just going to give a small anecdote. I lived around the Silver Beach neighborhood when Lake Whatcom was under fire because of the phosphorus. And the neighborhood association had meetings, but the communication wasn't widely distributed around the neighborhood. And so the people who were in the neighborhood association tended to be a concentrated group of very active activists. And what happened was when their recommendations came out, there were a few people, me included, who went door to door in the neighborhood to make sure everybody understood what was in the plan. And it created quite a ruckus. Gave me a black eye with the neighborhood association because we had to be contrary, but it was because the communications in the beginning weren't correct. And I would say narrowing who we communicate with and who we ask and who we involve is short-sighted. So the more involvement we get, even though we may not like some of the answers we get, we need to broaden our base for communications. And that includes when you come with a questionnaire, we do all need to be involved. I was going to echo that. And the stakeholder groups need to be broadened as well. I'm not at all happy with some of the stakeholder groups that aren't included. And I think we can probably work together to figure out who needs to be there, because what you need to hear are the people who are not necessarily on your page. They're the ones that we need to be able to respond to. Those are the ones who are going to want answers. Those are the ones who are going to come out of the woodwork. And I think if we're going to do a good job of this, we need to be inclusive in our stakeholder group, and we need to make sure our communications are as broad as possible to as many people as possible. So I echo a lot of what Bobby just said. I'm wondering what are the criteria you're going to use to go from aspirational to action? So in the beginning, you started out with these are aspirational, these are action. So what's the roadmap from aspirational to action? And action is imminent. Really, we only need ourselves to make that. But aspirational involves a lot of other things. So I'm wondering what that roadmap might look like.
I think like introducing those types of plans was really to give an idea of what the existing plans are that are out there. And so we can really craft a plan that is right for us. And whether or not we have giant aspirational goals or whether we have a bunch of smaller action-oriented goals, that's really up for this next step in the process.
So we don't have a roadmap to get from one to the other. So if we
No.
have something that's aspirational, we're not sure how we're going to get to the action mode with that. But we are going to come up with a list of things that are very action-oriented, and that will be the short list. That's the small list you talked about.
That's the plan, yeah.
If you go back to the slide on the time frame, and I'm just going to say this just from historical perspective, anything that you've got between July and September,
X?
seriously,
Okay.
we don't exist. Whatcom County goes mountain biking all of July. So you're not going to get quite the feedback. And I think that strategy and development section is an important enough discussion item that we should probably move that into September, even if it takes us, into February or March to get there. But again, it's a matter of inclusivity, and it's a matter of making sure everybody's got a seat at the table.
Right.
So I would be cautious about what I schedule during that time frame, because we're just AWOL. Some of us more than others.
You're a man of many words.
Go ahead, Bobby, and then I'll go to my next one.
I just wanted to point out, I just went through my emails while Ken was speaking here, and I received nothing from Brian, so we need to make sure that I'm on whatever list, because I've had some trouble receiving information. So I have not received anything last week from Brian or anyone else talking about this.
Okay, my apologies for that. We'll get that to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure I got it. I just didn't want to admit it until Bobby did. And then the goals and the timeframes. I just want to make sure we understand what the goals are and what the timeframes are, to be very clear on what those look like. But those are my first ones. And I really think the most important one is figuring out who those stakeholders are that we need to reach out to that may not necessarily be friendly to this message.
Right. I'd love to hear your feedback on, and your ideas on who you'd like to reach out to for that.
You think I know them all?
Well,
I think that's
it's
my
a start.
neighborhood?
It's a good start. So I think, sitting down and identifying who those stakeholders are is definitely an important part of that next step.
Yeah, quite frankly, I don't even know where all of them are, but I think we should do some research to figure out who might come up and
Okay.
raise a stink.
Do you have any criteria of how many advisory group members you're looking for, or?
No. And as far as, are you talking about the staff group or the?
The external advisory group.
Okay. No, it's up for discussion at this point.
We did have some conversation. The city of Bellingham just went through a large public process that port staff did participate in, and we had some conversation about weighing the level of public process we're going to have. And it was my view that we didn't need to replicate the city's year-long public process that they went through, because a lot of people already participated in that, and we can learn a lot from all that work that already happened. And so hopefully that large body of knowledge and that exhaustive public process is something that we're able to utilize and incorporate in here, so we don't have to utilize everyone's time and replicate what just happened.
I'll use another example. In the carbon tax today, just got another opponent from the logging industry and the trucking industry. They really are angry because I don't think they felt that they had an adequate input. So now they're down at the state capitol. I think we can look at some of those measures that are going through and find some of those affected groups and bring them to the table early in the process.
I came from the forest industry in BC before I was here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you will.
Yeah,
But you're familiar with the suit that they filed today, or the action they took today down
I
at the
didn't
Capitol?
know.
Yeah, they came out very strongly.
Okay, I'll look at that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Well, this is it's timely. We were just in Olympia, and we heard about efforts at the state. The WPPA was briefed on efforts that are happening that involve state actions around climate work, and it's something that we continue to see with our local partners here in government as well. So I think it's exciting that we're engaging in a topic that many of our other local governments and the state are really engaged in heavily right now. And it's also exciting because we have an ability to take some leadership statewide with other ports. I think we would become the fourth port to work on development of a climate action plan out of those 75. So it's something that I think we're going to be seeing from the rest of our member organizations over time. But this allows us to really take a little bit of leadership here and provide some structure for those other ports as they do some of this similar work. So
I'm not sure if this is appropriate, but I think the Commerce and Business Committee would be a good committee to run this through to make sure that they're all aware. And I would think some of our port tenants who would be impacted by this need to be involved fairly early on. I would say definitely Bellingham Cold Storage and maybe Matt.
I think we're going to want some tenants to have a significant presence on the committee, and we'll reach out to the appropriate ones and invite them.
And what about the committee? I think that's an appropriate.
Yep.
Yeah, and that will be affected by how we determine the scoping of what we put together as well, because what people usually start with is their own operations, and it doesn't necessarily directly impact those of their tenants, but it could. So those are the discussions that we'd be having.
I think the reason that I'm looking for that is because whatever we do here, we can't be doing in a vacuum, because what we do here will impact everybody, and it may even set the tone for what others do. So the earlier we get buy-in from others, or the earlier we get consensus with the others, the easier it'll be to enact these throughout. We could actually be leaders in the thought process when it comes to that. So that's really the reason for it.
yeah, I think the Business and Commerce Group is a good one to add. We've seen participation in some of these statewide initiatives from some of the big players, like BP has come out in support of the state moving towards a climate action plan for determining amount of carbon and taxing along with that carbon. So they're a major player regionally and internationally, and they certainly are engaging in this issue in more ways than we've seen in the past. So, lots of, I think, good options for people to participate. And you know, some of my other input was we have a unique role around economic development and business and commerce here. And so our ability to frame a climate action plan in the context of what this means for employment, what this means for jobs and businesses to be successful or unsuccessful here in Whatcom County is, I think, our real strength in our ability to craft this with our own expertise and direction here. And it also sets us up for charting what are the benefits for our community in terms of our economy and our different sectors to have this type of planning to move forward. I think those are some of our strengths we can build upon.
So talk to me about your thought process for what you're gonna look at to be the most important items for us to look at. We have an hour, so I figure I can dive into this. So is there a list of items that you think we should start with that are higher priority than, say, others? And what would be at the top of that list and what would be at the bottom?
As far as mitigation goes, I would say that we don't have a huge amount of emissions. So our largest ones are going to be our energy use from our buildings. We use a lot of electricity. We're going to green direct for most of that. So the carbon footprint of the electricity itself is fairly low, but whatever we can do to reduce our energy use and our footprint that way is going to be important, as well as our fleet management. So looking at some of those really, I don't know if geriatric is the right word, but we do have a number of probably less than efficient vehicles in our fleet.
Some of us are approaching geriatrics. So.
You're good.
Yeah. Adrian, why don't you just step back and tell us what the difference between mitigation and adaptation is, so that we kind of start with there. And then I like where we're going with this of having a couple examples of what are some tangible things we could expect to come out of this work.
Okay, so mitigation is the reduction in the greenhouse gases that your operations are emitting. Okay, so looking at, and you can do that by looking at energy use. You can tie the greenhouse gas equivalents or the carbon dioxide equivalents to the kilowatts of electricity that you use, for example. So if you can reduce the kilowatts of activity, then you can do calculations for how you reduce your greenhouse gas footprint. The adaptation side of things is how we look at how we prepare for changing conditions. So say sea level were to rise 2 feet, are we ready for that? What are the impacts potentially to our infrastructure, to our community, to our tenants? So the adaptation is how we prepare for those changing conditions.
With the mitigation, are we also looking at other fuel sources other than just energy? We're looking at gas, diesel, and natural gas as well.
Yep. Our fleet is fairly diverse. We have a couple of Priuses. We have an e-bike now. And we have a lot of trucks that are on diesel. We have equipment at the shipping terminal that run on diesel. We have equipment at the airport that might be electric, might be operated on gasoline. We have a shuttle bus at the airport that I believe is up for a replacement sometime soon. So looking at whether or not that could be electrified or not as we replace those things. Just kind of moving forward on a step-by-step basis, identifying which are the higher priorities as we replace things.
Okay. And so we look at both reductions and then what's the flip side of mitigation? Is there efforts that you can do to reduce impact in other ways other than reducing energy use?
Do you have an example or that you're thinking of?
Well, something like tree planting. I liked on page 12, there was a note that particularly looking at initial focus on low-cost, practical measures that can be put in place quickly with minimal disturbance. I read that and I initially thought, well, one of those easy things that is fairly cheap and has direct impact is tree planting. And it made me wonder if your team could put together a estimate, maybe it's a little bit aspirational, about the capacity we have for tree planting on our properties and with partner organizations.
Okay, we can do that. I know we have looked around for places to plant trees that are kind of not, it's not, so I'm just going to back it up a little bit. So what you're talking about is carbon sequestration, and that could be through offsetting. So offsets are things that we could purchase from, they're a credit basically that you could either purchase from somebody like the Whatcom Land Trust or other local folks that are planting lots of trees, or we could be doing ourselves, like you mentioned, if we've got land that is available for tree planting. And we looked around like for Earth Day a couple of years ago for appropriate spots on port property, and we're thinking, oh, maybe it's pump track, but it's really gravel, and any poor tree we put in the ground there is probably not going to sequester a whole lot of carbon. But so one of the things you look at with an offset project is whether or not it's considered additional, so whether it needed to be planted anyway, or whether or not it's something that goes above and beyond what the requirements are. And as far as port property, we didn't have a lot that would be considered additional, but we can definitely look further into that for sure. Mm-hmm.
Great.
And Bobby, I just noticed that Brian did send that to us on the 29th of January.
I'll look again, but I went clear back to the 15th of January. I didn't see anything. So.
Yeah, it came in on the 29th. It was a holiday season. It was just before.
But there's some other stuff I didn't get to that was group sent out that I
Just
didn't
before
review
yours.
here.
So we're exposing ourselves here, you know.
I know.
Yeah.
I have when you're through, Commissioner Shepard, I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
So I'm looking at the sample timeline. I don't feel that there's enough commissioner. We've got two little spots, one in 1st of June and one in September sometime. I think that, at least for myself, I'd like to be updated every month. I'd like to know where we're going every month, what's going on. As this thing is born, so to speak, and starts moving forward, I don't feel that two updates that we have, and I understand it's simple, it can change, but I don't feel that we're involved enough here.
Okay.
As a commissioner. So I'd like to be a little bit more involved. I'd like to see something each month of what's going on. As we're the three guys that are going to be the targets if things aren't going like the public wants, we'll be the ones in question, and I'd like to have the information on hand when I get questioned.
I think more involvement early on is better for us. I believe that was
Correct.
all communication.
Okay. That's great feedback. Thank you. I think we want to be, we know your time is valuable, so I think we went on the side of being cautionary with that, but that's great feedback. Thank you.
Any other questions there, Commissioner Briscoe?
No, that's all I had. Thank you.
I'm done. Thanks.
Okay. I'm done as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Commissioners, this next action item fully falls under my authority to approve, but we like to keep you up to date on our relationship with the various unions. So we're going to do a brief presentation and ask for you to vote on the latest union contract.
Authorize the executive director to execute the 2020 to 2023 collective bargaining agreement between the Port of Bellingham and the Inland Boatmen's Union, IBU, including any necessary budget adjustments. The terms and conditions of the agreement shall be effective as of January 1st, 2020, and shall terminate on December 31st, 2023.
Thanks, Gary. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Elizabeth Monahan, Director of Human Resources. So I'm pleased to present this collective bargaining agreement between the Inland Boatmen's Union and the Port. We began negotiating in November of last year. We took a brief holiday. We had some folks out, so we took a little time off, came back to the bargaining table, and just a few short meetings were able to come to agreement. It only took us 4 meetings, which I think might be a record for us. And I'd like to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to our IBU partners. led by Peter Hart, who was the chief negotiator. He is a very strong supporter of the Bellingham service for Alaska Marine Highway Systems. When Alaska Marine Highway Systems was looking at ferry reductions and budget cuts, Peter took our story to Alaska with us and has been a partner with us. So I just want to express my appreciation to him for his leadership there. And the team also consisted of Ryan Brazow. I think I said that right. Did I say that right? Okay. Eric Tritz, who is here in the audience today, and Hunter Jackman. Those were the folks for the IBU bargaining committee. And then for the port is myself, Dave Warder, and Diane McLean. So this contract does include a substantial pay adjustment based on some market conditions, and that's followed by a 3% increase each year of the 4-year agreement. And the core language of the agreement is very solid. We really didn't have many language changes or process changes. We did update the language so that it complies with the Janus Supreme Court decision, the Washington State Sick Leave, and the Washington Paid Family and Medical Leave. We also added some language that gives us a process by which we are able to clearly and consistently promote our part-time employees to full-time positions when there's openings. We finally added, or didn't add, but we maintained the language in the benefit section that continues to support our very robust healthcare and dental insurance at the current premium rates and the minor changes in the deductible and the copays that we saw this year. So on behalf of the Ports bargaining team, I'd like to recommend approval of this. IBU did ratify this agreement prior to coming here. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Commissioner Briscoe, any questions?
Oh, did we lose him?
Okay.
No, I have none.
Oh, there we go.
No, I forgot I was on mute.
Okay. Commissioner Bell, any questions?
No, just out of curiosity, because we do have time.
Good.
What do you use for market conditions when you do that? When you do a market assessment, what do you use and how do you go about that?
So actually, IBU brought us a lot of data, and then we combed through that data. So they,
The shocker.
yeah, they actually, a year ago so Peter Hart represented the clerical union when we did negotiations with the clerical union, and they did a very thorough compensation study of kind of marine service or the ticketing agent type positions, heavy customer service in the marine environment. They brought to us a lot of data. We kind of combed through a lot of that data. And then I also purchase salary surveys through Milliman every year. And so I look at some salaried exempt positions and some non-exempt positions that are in the region. And we use that data to identify whether we're at market or below market or what kind of adjustments need to be made.
Any assessment of how we fit with other ports of our size for this type of,
Yeah, we're ports of our size.
probably aren't in these labor markets, are
It's hard to make a real good comparison because our size and our marina size are so different in the types of marinas that we have in the marine side. And then we really don't have, for IBU, we don't have a comparable because no one else has ticketing agents for marine highway system, the Alaska Marine Highway System, that don't handle tie downs with the boats, but do handle a lot of other activities in the cruise terminal. So we have this morphed position that has a lot of different duties, and so we look at different types of duties and try to put the puzzle together. If that makes any sense?
Could you give me that explanation without using your hands?
No, I can't. It's impossible.
Didn't think so. Okay, that's all I've got.
Good. Well, I just wanted to share my appreciation to the IBU for your advocacy around keeping the ferry service here. I know you guys stepped up early and made trips and helped organize locally, and our staff certainly did as well. So it was a team effort. I'm glad we were able to work together, and we hope too that the service being kept here for this year means that we're going to keep it for a long time to come, but we'll continue to be there with you for protecting it as best we're able to. Mm-hmm. And that's all I have. thank you for the good work on this and for having a quick negotiation.
Yes.
Pretty good.
It was very quick.
All right.
May I add one comment?
Yeah, please.
IBU really appreciates the working relationship with the board.
Please come to the mic.
My name's Eric Tritz, and on behalf of the IBU, I've been told they really appreciate the working relationship with upper management and the commission, and it's hopefully we all move forward in a very positive manner for the community and everybody involved. So thank you very much.
Eric, thanks for bringing your kid to show him civic involvement too.
That's really great
That's
to hear.
important.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Authorize Executive Director to execute the 2020-2023 collective bargaining agreement between the Port of Bellingham and the Inland Boatmen's Union, IBU, including any necessary budget adjustments. The term and conditions of the agreement shall be effective as of January 1st, 2020, and shall terminate on December 31st, 2023.
Commissioner Bell,
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe,
Yes.
and Commissioner Shepard is a yes as well. Passes 3-0. Thank you very much. Okay. We have a 5:30 public comment period, and we are going to recess until then. Oh, yeah, I guess we can do other business now. Thank you. Let's do that. Other business, Commissioner Bell,
I'm going to wait for you.
Commissioner Briscoe, we'll give you a chance.
I have none. I'm going to bring it when I come home.
Okay. I have one piece. I just wanted to, we get, over the past week, we've gotten lots of updates from our emergency response personnel about the flooding and all of the weather we've had. I've been out in the county, seeing some of the impact, meeting with people who couldn't get across the borders to get home to Canada, couldn't get to schools, seeing their homes underwater. And I just wanted to thank everybody out there who's been working on this. Thanks to our first responders who have been putting in a lot of effort. And it's making wet out there again. So I heard there's flood watch again coming. So we'll be thinking about everybody who's being impacted by this weather at this time. That's all I have.
Done. I have nothing.
Oh, okay. Well, we will recess until 5:30. The commissioners will remain in the building and are available during the interim, and we will be back at 5:30 for public comment and conclusion.
And can we, hey, Bobby, do you think you need to be here for the 5:30 public comment?
I don't think we're going to have any public comment at
Yeah, I don't-
5:30.
What we'll do is
I'm-
we can call Bobby if we have comment, and we won't call you if we don't. How's that?
No, that works fine.
Okay.
Yep.
I say,
Commission meeting and seeing if we have anyone signed up for our 5:30 public comment. No. We have no one signed up. Is there anyone who would like to speak today who's in the audience? Any of our illustrious guests? No. All right. Thank you very much. We'll close the meeting and meeting adjourned. Here we go.
Okay.
What sports